welcome everybody to HUSSLUP's webinar on pitch decks. Pitch decks are a really critical tool for all of us, whether you're in film, TV, scripted, unscripted, to really communicate your ideas and your vision. And so we're really excited to have Abby Burton and Matt O'Brien join us today. Abby is a writer, director who's had her work featured in a number of film festivals, and Matt O'Brien is a producer and a executive with a lot of years of experience, including working with me in television. And they're going to help us today understand, first of all, structure for pitch decks, and then some of the tools of how to build great pitch decks. Abby's going to open the session with an introduction, and then Matt O'Brien is going to talk to us a little bit about some of the AI tools that are out there for crafting images and for being able to build pitch decks that are really three-dimensional. And then Abby's going to take us through some examples and help us sort of workshop how to craft a great pitch deck. So with that, I will hand it over, and I'm H. Schuster. I'm the founder and CEO of HUSSLUP, if I didn't say that already. So with that, I'll hand it over to Abby. If you guys have questions, you can put them into the Slido app that you've opened up in your chat, and we'll also have some polls that Abby's going to place in there for you as well.
Awesome. Thank you so much, H. Hi, everyone. I am Abby. I am going to share my screen with you guys first. And get this going. Okay, so how to make film and TV pitch decks. I am super excited to be here. Again, I'm Abby. I'm a writer and director originally from Cleveland, Ohio, but I made the move out to the West Coast 2 years ago. I've been making pitch decks pretty much since I started making films in college in around 2013. I started just making my own and with my writing and directing partner, Antonio. And slowly, like, friends started asking if I could help with theirs, and it just kind of spread from there. I started doing it about 4 years ago, kind of as like a little side gig. So when I started making pitch decks, I felt like there wasn't a whole lot of information out there, at least consistent information. So that's really what got me into kind of making my own formula for them. And yeah, so what is a pitch deck? A pitch deck is an 8 to 20 page document that concisely explains your show or film. It is visual heavy, so you want to use a lot of concept art, a lot of comps, things like that. But it does have text to it as well. And just on this slide, the top right is a cover I did for a documentary for Red Bull. That was a really fun project, and documentary pitch decks are kind of their own little beasts. If you have specific questions on that, you can send me an email. But the bottom three are projects of my own. It's just the cover, but the far right one, Bell, is for an episodic. And then the two on the left, Sandbog and Rooted, are for short films that we've done. So yeah, so just a little peek at some of my work. Where to start? So that is the number one question that I get, is like, okay, I want to make a pitch deck, but where do I start? This is kind of a quick snapshot of the tools that I use. I use Shot Deck. It's a great website. You do have to subscribe to download the images, but it's free to browse if you just want to look. It basically has shots from nearly every single movie and a lot of shows that you could ever want. It is super helpful because they're all high quality, and if you do subscribe and then you download and use them, then you know that you're using images that were sourced in like an ethical way. HUSSLUP, obviously, I've been a member of HUSSLUP for a really long time. I think I was one of the first like few hundred people. I love using HUSSLUP to connect with people and just to gather information, gather advice. Advice with pitch decks is huge. Having people look at your pitch decks with an unbiased opinion, because sometimes you get so attached to it that you don't notice certain things. Another thing I use is Shutterstock for stock images. I use IMBD more for looking at log lines. I think it's really interesting to look at the comps that you have for your project, and then if you're having trouble writing your log line or your synopsis, go to IMBD and see what your comps have. Kind of don't copy them, but use that to kind of give yourself inspiration. Design wise, you can use Canva. I use that a lot. I used it for this presentation. I'll use that if I have a quick deadline to meet, or if it's just like a quick personal thing I'm putting together. InDesign is more expensive and a lot more difficult, but if you can use InDesign, it's great. And then another great place is Keynote. It's completely free, and you can put together a pretty nice looking pitch deck on there. So with that, I am going to hand it off to Matt O'Brien, who's going to talk to us about all things AI.
Awesome. Thank you, Abby. Yeah, just to give you guys a bit of background on myself as well. I've been an unscripted development exec for over 15 years and worked, for Reveille and Shine, and that's where Heather and I worked together, and 51 Minds, and Jimmy Kimmel's Wheelhouse was recently there as their VP of development. And over the course of my career, I've always, pitch decks have always been paramount for communicating the show idea, killer visuals. You really want to just paint a whole picture for buyers. But now with the advent of AI, it's really given us a whole new opportunity to really create imagery that really doesn't exist. It's not something you could really search for. And when you get hyper specific, and when you're doing a game show, for example, we used to have to pay a lot of money to get set renders, and you wouldn't want to do that until the show was greenlit. But now we can use pitch decks at the pitch stage and use tools like Midjourney to create set designs to really give buyers an immersive feeling for what this show looks like on its feet. So today I'm going to walk through, and it's going to be very top line, but some of my tips and hacks and tricks that you guys can use to really generate some really powerful imagery. And I'll give you some of my favorite tools and platforms to do that. So just to give you an example, this is a deck that I had called Boss Beach, right?
Hold on one second, Matt.
Oh yeah.
Matt, can you spotlight Matt for us, please, so that he can be full screen?
Matt is spotlighted now.
Oh, weird. I'm not seeing him that way. Is everyone else seeing Matt spotlighted?
For me, he is spotlighted.
Huh.
Yeah, I also see him spot.
All right. Well, then that's me that's not getting that.
Maybe you changed the view on the top right.
Maybe I did. All right. Sorry, guys. Continue.
Oh, no problem.
Sorry about that.
Oh, no worries. No, I'm glad. All right. So I'm gonna get, this is good. So yeah, you can see this is something, this is a sample deck called Boss Beach. Concept isn't that important. It's like Survivor, except there's no food or water on the beach, and food has to get flown in and water gets flown in, and there's a celebrity on the island that chooses who gets what food after they're satisfied. But going through, and Nicole Richie was kind of my favorite celebrity for this, so I created an AI version of her. We could talk about that later. But there are specific challenges, like this one. Rolling shit uphill, right? Where teams have to literally take piles of dung and roll them to the other side of the island. Now you could try and find an image like this on Google, but it's gonna probably take you a long time. And so these are the kinds of examples, where it's like, I want a really juicy steak on a beach. It's really hard to do. Usually you could do, you could take, an image of a steak, and you could put it on an alpha channel, and you can open Photoshop, or use Canva, and you can, do that. But AI has really gotten to the point where you can create a lot of these images from whole cloth and really get specific and really dial in on your pitch decks and your concepts. So one of my, kind of go-to apps is Midjourney, and I highly recommend you guys give Midjourney a try. I find that it has the most robust imagery, and the learning curve is pretty low. One thing that I would just suggest to everyone is you download Discord, and then once you download Discord, you're going to want to click on these direct messages because otherwise the interface can get pretty hairy. But once you click on that direct message, you're in the Discord server, and basically there's a few steps when you want to create an image. And again, I'm going to give you guys the top line stuff. With all of these tools, I would say the best thing to do is just get in there and start getting your hands dirty. But I'm going to show you the basic steps that you can get started with so you can start generating images on the fly. So the first thing that you always want to do in Midjourney is /imagine. That's kind of where you start every search. So let's say we do, and I'm going to do an example here for you guys so you can see. Let's say we do /imagine, and let's say an African-American model, 1960s portrait, head and shoulders, okay? And so /imagine, you give it a prompt, and then it's going to start to generate. And usually it'll take, you'll see here, it's going to take maybe 10, 15, up to 30 seconds to do it. But once it generates these images, what you'll see here, and you can already see an example right here, is, let me see if I can circle that. Yeah, right here, when you generate images, you're going to get this quadrant. And it's going to give you 4 sample images. And once you get those 4 sample images, you're going to kind of look at them and say, okay, which one of these is my favorite? And you can see here, we'll let it resolve. It's almost done, and then we can kind of all take a look together. But you can see it's about 75% done. And this is how these generative AI models work. It kind of starts in a fuzzy manner, and then the pixels start to resolve and start to get a little bit more crystallized so that you get these kind of photos. So here we are. These are the 4 options that it generated. And you can see, okay, you can decide which one we like best. Let's say we want to go with option 3. And the way this works, just so you know, is this box is 1, it's 2, 3, and 4, like that. That's how it works. So you can see below here, there's U1, U2, U3, U4, V1, V2, V3, V4. U1 means you want to up-res that image, you're ready to go. So let's say we like 2. 2 is our favorite. We're going to up-res it. Great. That's our favorite. That's the one we're going to use. Now, the second step that you want to do is then generate a seed. And what a seed is that if you want to have a character, let's say you have a main character and this is what they look like, and this is the character that you want to put in different scenarios in your deck. Maybe you're telling a narrative story, you want to show them in different places or different contexts. So what a seed will do is create kind of a unique string of numbers that you can incorporate into your /imagine prompt so that when it generates new images of this same model, the model is going to look the same. Otherwise, you're going to get a completely different looking face, and that's not really optimal. So the way that you're going to do that is you just add a reaction, an envelope, which you can see here. And when you do that, you can see right there, there's the seed, okay? So you can see right there, the seed is 764036195. So now with that, what we're gonna do is we're gonna take this, you're gonna copy the URL, which is copy the link for this picture, okay? And then we're gonna use the same prompt again, and we're gonna use this URL. And if you guys want, just obviously this is being recorded, but you can take a screenshot. There's only 4 steps, so we're almost done. So you're gonna take this URL, and then you're gonna use that same prompt, an African-American model, 1960s. And let's say instead of portrait, but let's say on the beach. And then we're gonna do seed, and then we're gonna put this number here. So again, this may seem kind of crazy, but you'll see with more and more practice, this will start to kind of become second nature. And then you just change words one at a time. You could say African-American 1960s portrait, Central Park. And you can start to kind of play around with this. And what you'll see is Midjourney is going to start to create this consistent imagery for you. And so this is a wonderful way, especially when you're telling different, a story where you want some continuity. That's one of the biggest challenges of these generative AI and images for pitch decks is how do I kind of tell a story and a through line with the same characters? So if you use these steps, that's going to be a great way to take this same model, and I'll show you the results here. And then we're almost done. It's like 75%. We're getting there. Give it one more second and then we can kind of pick our favorite. But you can already see there's some, nice details. Some of them are black and white. but we have the same basic model, and I would say 4 is probably the closest for me. You would up-res 4, and then you can then just save that image. So that's one way, and again, this is very quick and dirty, but that's one way that you can really use Midjourney to really make some effective images. Another place that I like to use is prompt base. Again, this is a hack that you can use where you can search through and it has all sorts of different image filters that you can use in Midjourney. So let's say, for example, we wanted to take this model and make our model a He-Man action figure, okay? So what you would do is in a lot of these what you're gonna get here is a prompt, and sometimes it'll be like, 99 cents, maybe $1.99, but some of them are really good, and it basically gives you a copy and paste. So what you do is you copy and paste that prompt, and we'll go back to Discord again, right here, and we will say \imagine, which you guys already know now, and then maybe we're gonna take the image of that we just generated, and we're gonna insert that in for our character, and then say action figure of the 1980s, Masters of the Universe. Now this is gonna be really weird, okay? But this is AI. You get some weird generations. But again, it's an example of if you don't wanna take the time to craft perfect prompts, you can go to sites like this, like Prompt Base, and get some amazing stuff. There's even things like, and let me switch back to Discord so you guys can see. 1 second, there we go. Go back to, so you'll see here, let me remove these. So it's generating it now. While it generates, we can take a look not only at Prompt Base, there's another thing you can do as well. If you guys go to Midjourney, and this is the alpha version, but you guys can also do this on the midjourney.com platform. Just type in anything. So if we're gonna do Mafia, maybe we want to search for something like that, you can get all of these images that other people have created. So you don't have to create them yourself. And some of them, they're so stylistic, and I love to use Midjourney just as a jumping off point for inspiration. So you can see all sorts of different, if you're doing let's say you're doing a film noir type of deck, you could have cartoons, you have all these different styles. And the great thing is, here's the prompt right here. So you could just copy that prompt, bring it back into Discord, and you're gonna get similar results. So again, these are lots of different ways that you can use Midjourney to really generate some crazy stuff. Okay, so this is crazy. I'm gonna go back to Discord. This is like an insane AI generated, but it's a He-Man figure of the person. Now, you can see sometimes this is what AI does, but it makes crazy images, and sometimes you say, okay, I'm gonna get rid of that. That's absolutely bananas. But you can find prompts, not He-Man action figures, maybe a stained glass. I'll show you some of the other ones that I've used before. So you can see, let's see the ones that I've purchased. Stained glass celebrity murals, premium highway billboard designs, isometric islands, HD photos, surveillance footages. I've used that for true crime decks. So you can use these prompts, just click on it, and it's gonna give you that surveillance footage prompt. You're gonna drop that into Midjourney. It's gonna give you really great stylistic photos pretty quickly without having to learn a lot of the technical stuff behind it. Another, maybe some of you have used ChatGPT. So I'm gonna show you another quick hack that you could do with that too. If you do have ChatGPT 4, what you can do is you can go into the assistant and create a Midjourney assistant. And if you guys, it may be too small for you guys to see down here, but what you can do basically is just go onto the Midjourney site and copy all of their documentation, put it into a Word document. So this is you want to teach GPT how to write prompts for Midjourney. So you copy the entire documentation, just copy and paste, put it in a Word doc, and then you dump it back into GPT. And so once you dump all of those documents into GPT, then you have a Midjourney bot. And you could say something like, what is the image you'd like to create today? A wizard jumping out of an airplane, all right? And I said airplace, but it's probably going to know this. And so in a second, this Midjourney bot which is trained on the version 5 model, is going to create a very detailed prompt that's going to actually get into more specifics, like it's using a Canon EOS R5 mirrorless camera with 35 millimeter. I don't know what that means. ISO of 400, don't know. But I'm going to copy this. I'm going to paste that into Discord, and it's going to create an image that's pretty good. So I've had a lot of success with that as well. So I think with Midjourney and ChatGPT, you can really start to scale up pretty quickly without getting too much into the weeds of coding or anything like that. Another tool that I love if you are in the Adobe suite is Adobe Express. I think it's really great for laying out pitch decks, and it's also really great for the generative AI is okay. But, I'll give you an example. Like if we're going to do, let's say, let's do an eclipse photo, right? So we'll create that new one here. We'll keep the aspect ratio. But then you could just do themes. You can do a lot of changes to this picture pretty quickly. So let me give you an example. It has the easy remove background, right? So that's the alpha channel is great. You could do effects. You could say, oh, let's colorize it. So it's all pretty easy to use, and it integrates really well with the Adobe Creative Suite. So again, all of these things, kind of adds up sometimes with all these subscriptions. If you could do Adobe Creative Cloud, I think that's great. You don't have to. I think Canva, which I know Abby's going to talk a little bit about, is fantastic. But I've found that when you're creating, a deck, it's really fast. And so you could say, Eclipse, and then it's going to generate a whole bunch of suggestions for you in terms of fonts and different things like that, where you can do text effects, you can do, and this is generative AI by doing it this quickly. So that's another one that I highly recommend. And then lastly, I would say also ReadyMag is pretty cool for decks. I would check this one out as well. It has a really cool features where you're creating these type of moving slides. So you can take video. I think this is kind of like another way to create an eye-popping deck that works by just sending a link. And you can really create some really nice templates with this as well. So that's something else that I would recommend that I found kind of just looks a lot different. It's a lot more dynamic and really kind of is eye-popping. So yeah, in a nutshell,
And Matt, you create those videos with a prompt. Is that what you're doing?
you can. That one is stock video, but a lot of it does create, like you can create videos and then drop them in with Sora or Runway or any of those. So it's another way to kind of incorporate. It gets a little hairy. I'm sure if you guys have ever tried before, if you want to put moving images into a PowerPoint deck or a PDF and you're sending it, inevitably someone on the chain is gonna be like, it doesn't work. I can't get it to open. It's not loading. So it's always an issue. So I generally have stayed away from moving images with pitch decks, but I found that ReadyMag is a pretty stable platform that you can easily drop videos in and do that. And so, yeah, that in a nutshell, I love AI so much. I'm, studying it at Columbia right now, machine learning. I'm deep into it, so please feel free to hit me up and ask me any questions after this. I know I went through a lot, but I will pass it back to Abby now so she can tell you more about how to actually build these things.
That was great. And guys, Matt may not stay until the end for the Q&A, but if you want to reach out to Matt, you can DM him on HUSSLUP. I just dropped his profile link on HUSSLUP into the chat. So feel free to reach out to Matt.
Awesome. That was amazing. I learned a lot. I haven't ventured too much into AI past, the classic ChatGPT, things like that. I think Canva has done a little bit of AI. In case you guys check that out. It's not near the level of what Matt just showed us, but you can get some simple things done. I guess back to kind of the general pitch deck. Let's talk about what you need for a pitch deck. And I'm talking, information wise. So if you're making one for a film or a short film, This is what I like to include. Some people include a little bit more, some people include a little bit less. But this is what I think is a good starting point. Title page, log line, and these are all at least one page. So title page is one page, log line is one page, synopsis, genre, tone, and style. When you get to characters, you can do multiple pages, and you probably will do multiple pages. It depends on how many characters you have, how many you want to explain in your pitch deck. Then on to target audience. That'll be one page. Key creatives can also be a couple pages depending on how many people you have attached to your project. Budget is usually around a page, maybe two. Market analysis and your comps. If you're doing an episodic pitch deck, it's pretty much the same information. I won't read them all to you again. You want to add a pilot summary, which is exactly what it sounds like, a summary of your pilot episode, and your episodic vision, so how this is going to expand into a whole series. So that is it. And now we're going to go to how to write a log line. I did see Matt was shared with me some concerns that you guys shared with HUSSLUP on making your pitch decks, and log lines was one of them. So I just wanted to go into it a little bit more. So your log line should be 30 words or less, and it's hard, and a lot of people do break the rules with this. So I'm not gonna attack you if you don't make it 30 words or less, but I think it is really beneficial because you get to know your project so much better when you are fighting with yourself to fit this into 30 words. You're learning how to be more descriptive. You're learning how to, just describe your film, and I think a better way. So your log line should consist of the following, but they don't have to be in any particular order. It should have your protagonist, it should have your inciting incident, your protagonist's goal, and the central conflict. So as I told you guys, I like to use, IMBD and HUSSLUP and different things to look at other log lines for the comps that I have. And so I wanted to read you guys a couple of famous log lines and see if you can figure out what film they're from. So if you think you know what they're from, go ahead and put it in the chat, and then I'll tell you what it's from. A fashionable sorority queen is dumped by her boyfriend, and so she decides to follow him to law school, where she figures out that there's more to her than just looks. Do we know this film? Most likely. Yes, it is Legally Blonde. And I think this is a really good example because you don't always use your protagonist's name in a log line. I see that a lot, and people think, oh, I have to name my protagonist. She's in, they're in my script. I know who they are. But I think there's more beneficial information that you can tell your reader in a log line than their name. So saying a fashionable sorority queen rather than Elle Woods it tells your reader a little bit more about who she is. So the next log line, when his son is swept out to sea, an anxious clownfish embarks on a perilous journey across a treacherous ocean to bring him back. So I'll give you guys a second. And we all know this is Finding Nemo. Another time, it doesn't name the dad. It could say Marlin decides to, trek across the ocean. And I like this log line a lot because it uses some really great descriptive words where sometimes we get a little bit too wordy. And so it's like just using those good, big descriptive words to get a point across makes you a little bit less wordy in your log line. So I made us a pitch deck just to kind of go over in this meeting. I'm going to tell you why I made each page, how I made it, what goes on each page, things like that. But first, I made it with a kind of fresh idea, and we're going to pick the title and the log line together. So I think this is where Matt is going to open up Slido, and just based off of this cover page, and then I'll tell you it is a female-led thriller about a pitch deck designer. So I know that's not a ton of information to go off of, but go ahead and just pick whichever title you like best. There's no right answer here. So if you guys want to go ahead and do those votes, I'm going to put it in the deck in real time.
And guys, for anybody who joined late, you can go to the top of the chat if you scroll all the way to the top, and you can just open Slido right there.
Cool. I see 20 people.
Okay, the votes are still coming in.
Awesome. And Matt, if you want to let me know the winner, I don't think I can see it.
I'll reveal the results in a second.
Okay. Okay.
I'm building anticipation here.
Right?
Okay. Let's wait 10 more seconds. All right. So the Dead Space is the winner. I think you should all see now.
Ooh, okay, awesome. I like that. So I'll go ahead and plug that in. And you do have to adjust it a little bit to make sure that it fits. And so we have our film. This is going to be a film pitch deck. You want to make sure you get it nice and centered, called Dead Space. So the title page is a big opportunity actually for you to kind of learn or use what you learned from Matt and do AI art. I like to do concept art or kind of a simple stock image for the cover page. You want it to give them a feeling of what your story is about, but you don't necessarily want to use a shot from another film just because, that's not as engaging as something that is specific to your project. So that is the title page. Now the next page is the logline page. And this is where our next Slido question comes. I just went over a little bit about how to write a logline. So I went ahead and wrote a few options for you guys. There's 4 options. And I put the word count in there so you guys won't have to count those words. But if you guys want to pick which one you think is the correct logline, there is a correct answer for this one. So just pick which one you think is the correct one. I know some of them are a little wordy, so it might take a minute to read. Awesome.
All right.
Awesome. So what was the most picked answer? Awesome. You guys got it right. So all of these are pretty, good descriptions. None of them are horrible, but it is the 30-word one. It is an up-and-coming designer is hired to create a pitch deck for her biggest gig yet, but she struggles to hold on to reality as the project, or wait. Yeah. Oh. Matt, did we get that changed? It's okay. I will go ahead and paste that into our logline page. And yes, 30 words. So that's awesome. So the logline page, I typically will include a pretty large image on just because there's not a lot of text and you can play with the dead space. So call back to our title there. And you want to make sure that you can read the text. And then I always like to give a little credit. That's what's in the upper left-hand corner. This shot is from The Woman in the Window with Amy Adams. And yeah, I think just making sure your logline is 30 words is a good idea because it also fits on the page nicely. So this is the next page. I like to mix my comps in throughout the deck. I've seen a lot of decks do that, and I like it just because I think it gives your reader just a tiny bit of a break. This is a comp from Gone Girl, a female-led thriller, and I really love these shots. It's the top shot is one of the first shots of the film, and then the bottom shot is the last shot of the film. I like the symmetry. I like if you've seen the film, you know she's gone on quite a journey, so you kind of see the difference in her tone or her expression. I think that is just a really great comp for this film. So then next, we're going to have the synopsis. The synopsis is 300 to 400 words. It should have your title, an overview of the plot, the setting and the period, your genre, your themes. You want to write it in third person, and you want to write in the tone of like your genre. So if it's a horror film, kind of maybe write a little creepy, or if it's a romance, be real lovey-dovey. Typically, if your film follows a 3-act structure, a good idea for the synopsis is to do 3 paragraphs. That makes it pretty easy. And then don't forget to include character development, because this is a point where you can start getting people interested in who your characters are and what they mean to the story. And also, you don't want to hide anything here in your synopsis. You don't want to leave your reader on a cliffhanger. You want to spoil everything, put it all out there, because this is what's going to get them really interested. I know that it can be really easy to get wordy with your synopsis, but it takes a lot of writing, rewriting, having friends read it. You could potentially use AI to shorten your writing if you feel like you can't get it shorter. But yeah, 300 to 400 words. And then this page, I typically don't put an image on just because it is so text heavy. I just kind of keep it as a plain background and then the words. So the next page I include is genre. Another shot from The Woman in the Window. I think that's a great thriller film. So this is going to be 1 to 2 sentences. It's going to be something short. You're going to want to explain the genre of your film and why this genre works. Will you be combining 2 genres? Maybe you want to explain that a little bit here. Maybe if you're going to do some rule bending in your genre. You just want to give your reader kind of a preview of that. And then just another note from this page. This is something I learned a long time ago in a previous life. I was a magazine editor. And I learned from my editors to always use your eye line in the photo to go towards your text. This is because if your eye line goes off the page, your reader is actually more likely to look off the page as well. So you want to make sure you're using the eye line, like where Amy Adams is staring on this page would be exactly where I would put my text. Just a nice, helpful design tip that I always try to remember. Another comps page. Like I said, I sprinkle these throughout. I just think it gives a nice visual break. The top is from a movie called Fresh, and the bottom is Promising Young Woman. I liked these shots. I think, just bringing home that female-led thriller, strong female lead. And I just think they're both, really cool shots. All right, your next page is going to be tone and style. This should also be shorter, but it is what makes the tone and style of your film stand out. Do you have something unique in mind? Maybe a unique shooting style or camera angles or music, lighting, anything that's going to enhance the feeling that you want your film to give. And then all of the comps that you use throughout your deck should support this tone and style. So you wouldn't want to use some rainbowy happy comp for a dark female-led thriller. You would want to kind of keep those dark, moody tones throughout all of your comps. And that, I would say, keep around 100 words, maybe 2 to 3 sentences if you can. You can definitely expand if you need to, but all of this is about really getting to your point and not making it super tedious for somebody to read. The next page, I have another comp. This is Knives Out, another great mystery thriller film. This is actually a color palette and a shot I pulled straight from Shot Deck. And the really cool thing is I love incorporating color palettes into my pitch decks because I think it just shows another level of understanding of your film. And also it's a really great just kind of design break. It looks different than your other pages. Another great thing with Shot Deck is it will give you the color palette for every shot if you click on it. And then you can actually click that color palette and it'll bring up all shots that have that same color palette. So it's a really easy way to enhance that tone and style is if you're keeping kind of a similar color palette throughout. Next, I put characters. Characters, you definitely want to include your protagonist and your antagonist. And you would have a few pages to do this. It kind of depends on the style of your film. You can put multiple characters on each page, but I usually give 1 page per character, depending on how many there are, just so you can have a little bit more visual representation. Your photo, you can choose someone that looks visually like you want your character to look. So like if I wanted my character to be a redheaded woman, I nailed it because I got Amy Adams. But I chose this character more for how she feels throughout the film. She feels unheard. She feels like she's going crazy. And I think that's how my main character is going to feel. Another thing that you could do, which I've seen, is you could group your characters. So the Stranger Things pitch deck, which is out there on the internet, it's pretty easy to find if you just Google Stranger Things pitch deck. They actually grouped their characters in 4 groups. They did the kids, the adults, the teenagers, and the outsider. So they didn't necessarily name their characters or anything like that, but they had groups. And for me on the characters page, I'll usually include the character name. So the character name in your project. So if ours named was Alice, I'd put the name Alice. I put where the reference is from. This is from The Woman in the Window. And then I put who the actor is in the photo. It's Amy Adams. And then the age that the character is. So that should match the age that you want your character to be. And she's mid-40s. So yeah, that's your character page. Next, I would put target audience. I didn't have a lot to visually put here since I just created this project out of thin air. But you want to briefly talk about who this film is being made for. You want to know who's going to watch it, who's going to enjoy it, and who's going to recommend it. Those are all 3 really big things to put on your target audience page. Not only is this going to help you in your creative process, knowing who you're writing for, but when you're pitching and they're asking you questions, if you can justify an answer with, this is why I would do it because my target audience would like it, or they would enjoy it more, or this would make them recommend it more, there's really not much of a better answer there because that means people are going to watch it and you know who you're writing for. So I think those are all really important. Next is your key creatives. This is also more of a visual page. I didn't have too much because, again, this isn't a real project, but here's where you're going to want to put your bio. You're going to want to brag a little bit, talk about what you've done, what's relevant to this project as well. Because again, you don't want it to be too text heavy. I would highly recommend putting things that are relevant to this project. So for example, If I was making this pitch deck for a short film, I would write about the short films that I've done. But if I was making this for a documentary, I would talk about my magazine experience, because with magazine experience, I need interview skills, and that comes in handy when making a documentary. If the topic of the film was medical, I would include that I'm a cancer survivor, just because that shows them that I have a personal tie to this film. You know, I have the experience, I know what I'm talking about. And you want to do that for everybody you have involved in the film at that time. And you can include photos. I think photos are a really good thing to show them, put like a face to the name of who's involved. Next, we have another comps page. I love those visual breaks. I think they're fun. You can tell that the movies that inspired this are, you know, these ones, but I like these shots because they're similar in color palette. It's kind of looking off into the distance, stuff like that. And again, I do always try to put the credit up there so they know what film. And my biggest suggestion is to make sure that you have watched the films that you're using as comps. Just because if they do ask you questions, you want to say, why did you choose this? I chose the top photo because it felt very isolating to me. I think that my film, the lead character, would feel very isolated. Same with the bottom one. It feels kind of outcasty, isolated, estranged, things like that. Next is the budget page. How much do you think you need to make this film? You want to lead with your suggested budget. If it's an indie film that you think should have a $10 million budget, break down how you're going to use that. If it's 10 to 20 million micro budget studio film, break that down. It should be dynamic depending on who you're sharing it with. So if you're going to a studio, it's going to be kind of different than if you're going to an indie producer. But either way, you want to give them, show them that you've thought about this, show them that you've thought about the money that you're asking for. And I would use graphs on this page just to show maybe like a pie chart of how much is going to go to cast, crew, locations, pre-production, post-production, things like that. The next page will be your market analysis. So this is where your comps come in handy. You want to go see how your comps performed. And you want to tell them, hey, my film is going to perform similarly to this film. There's a few tools that you can use. There's Largo AI, there's Luminate, and there's Parrot Analytics. They'll provide you with information on how other films have performed. They'll give you an analysis on how they think your film's going to perform based on the information that you have. But you could also hold like a sample screening. You could do a screening of your film for preferably strangers, just so they don't have a tie to the film, and get their opinions, get their feedback, and then you can put that all on this page. I would use graph, things like that, to show that information. So I usually will put like a closing page, just to kind of cap it at the end, like the back of a book. But that's the end of the pitch deck. So once your deck's complete, you can use it. You're going to pitch it. You're going to secure funds with it. I've used decks to also send out to cast and crew to get them involved in the project. But you do want to keep in mind that you will most likely need two versions of this pitch deck. You're going to need one that is something you'll present in person. And if you are presenting it in person, you don't want it to be super text heavy. You want it to be more visual. And then you're going to have another version that you will send out in emails or even in the physical mail if you print it out. And that one is going to have a little bit more words on it because you'll have to be descriptive because you're not going to be there to pitch it. So I would just keep that in mind. And that is all that I have. I have my email and my Instagram here. I really appreciate you guys coming. If you guys have any questions, you can reach out to me either way, or my HUSSLUP. DM me on HUSSLUP. I'm on there all the time.
I
I do
just dropped
free.
the link to Abby's HUSSLUP profile into the chat as well.
Awesome. And just so you guys know, I do free consultations because I really just love doing this. And I'll talk to you about your pitch deck, things like that. And then if you want me to help, I can help. If not, I can be that fresh set of eyes for you if you need it. So thank you guys so much. I appreciate it. And I think
Thank you,
the
Abby.
perfect
Thanks so
time
much,
to,
Abby. Thank you. That was great. And thank you, Matt O'Brien. We have a couple of questions that wound up in Slido, and I just want to go ahead and make sure we've answered those questions. Etta asked the question, Matt, if you're still with us, about Midjourney. She was wondering if it's only accessible through Discord or if there's a separate app. How do you sort of get to Midjourney if you're still on with us? And if you're still on with us, you are muted. Matt may have stepped away because he's on the East Coast this evening. We also had a question about comps. I think that's interesting, right? Because we really saw two distinct takes on designing a pitch deck. One was to create images using AI that are sort of, cut from kind of original whole cloth. And then the other is to use comps from films that really create the same or a similar, a comparable vibe and tone and color palette and so forth, right? Abby mentioned the Duffer Brothers pitch deck for Stranger Things, which was actually called Montauk when they pitched it. That deck has pictures of 80s movies throughout, everything from Poltergeist to Close Encounters of the Third Kind to Altered States, and it treats them in a very specific way in the deck. You guys can find it online. So somebody asked about how many comps can you use in a deck. I think that's really contingent on what works, right? What works for telling your story and really really getting across the tone and the vibe of what your project is. And in terms of comps, I think, Abby, you were saying that you often look at Shot Deck for the pictures, right? For the photos from those films.
mm-hmm.
Great.
Yeah, I use that for the photos, and I did see a question on, finding comps just in general. My advice there would be use your knowledge bank of films and shows that you have seen, but use your friends. This is a great place to go to HUSSLUP and make a post and say, hey guys, I'm making a film. Here are some comps that I have. Can you comment other films that I need to see? And use that.
Absolutely.
Use Google. I mean, it's like a cheesy answer, but research as much as you can. Look on Netflix. I think you can do based on genre and just absorb all that information that you can.
That's great. And then Elron asked about a business plan in the deck. Elron, I don't think you need a full business plan, but you should definitely have a budget ready to show to somebody. You can do, as Abby said, sort of a shorthand chart or high, headlines of what you're spending the money on. Have that line item budget ready to follow with when they ask for it. And beyond that, if you have, this is something, it might be even an additional slide, I would think, Abby, if you have already secured some financing and you can share how much that is, who that is, where it's coming from, if your film, if you're already, the recipient of any kind of grant or accolade for the script or for anything else, that should definitely go in the script to help the sales process. Ilyana asked, do you include contact information on the last page? Abby, where do you put your contact info? First page, last page?
Typically I do it on the last page. I do like a kind of like thank you for your consideration, and then I'll list like my email and phone number.
Terrific. That's great. And then maximum pages for decks. I think your deck basically is broken up into the topics you cover in the deck, and I would say it's maybe 12 pages, 15 pages.
Yeah, I think maxing it out. I think the longest decks I've seen are like 20 pages, but I think a good sweet spot is 12 to 15.
I think so too. I would agree with that. I think when you get to 20 pages, guys, the odds of somebody looking through it on their own and getting all the way to the end, it's really tough, right? It's diminishing returns. You want to try and keep it really concise, as concise as you can, right? And then we had a question about for episodic, should the list of episodes and descriptions of each be included? I believe you have that on your breakdown, Abby, right? That there would be an episode Bible or a slide that addresses episodes, right?
Yeah, your episodic vision. Yep.
And how do you typically organize that slide? Maybe you could just speak a little bit more to that for the folks on the call who are TV folks.
Yeah, for sure. I can, and Matt, we talked about, you've done some episodic stuff as well, right?
Yeah, I mean, for for unscripted and episodic, you definitely need a little more information than for like a traditional feature film or short film. But I would say it really depends, like, what it's gonna convey your story. It cannot be like a Bible. You're always gonna attach a Bible on aside from the pitch deck, which is gonna go into more details on different episodes and the vision for the first 3 seasons. Most likely is something that you want to attach there, but for the pitch deck, I would go into like the first season overview.
Yeah, and I think Matt O'Brien showed us a little bit of a pitch deck he did with pushing shit uphill, which was a good challenge. I'm going to remember that one. But you know, breaking down, for example, if it's a competition reality show, breaking down what the episodes are. First of all, what the format of the episode is, right? On a non-scripted show, you would usually have a format slide, maybe instead of a plot synopsis slide. And you would also probably have a breakdown of the episodic challenges or sample challenges that would be tonally in keeping with the show, right? And so it really, for TV, will differ if it's scripted versus unscripted, but you want to get some detail in that deck about what your first season of episodes look like.
Yeah, I think also on the Stranger Things pitch deck, when you guys look it up, they don't do episodic vision, they do franchise potential. So they talk about how, while this could be just an 8-hour tale, is what they call it, they explain how it could go further, and they tell why and what the story would be and things like that. So you have some options there.
And that has worked out well for them, I would say. Ileana asked another question. She said, is this deck to be shown to producers and investors? How would you edit the deck to show to lead talent? That's a great question. So the deck will change a little bit depending on your target audience. I would even say that you may have a different deck for your behind the camera folks, right? If you're looking for a DP or you're looking for an editor, you're looking for folks like that, you might have one version of the deck that doesn't necessarily speak to budget and some of the things that an investor would want to see. What am I missing, Abby? What are the other things you would put in a deck, for example, for talent that you might not put in a deck for other folks?
Yeah, for talent, you could maybe expand a little bit more on your characters, just so they can see that. And maybe your tone and style is a little bit more descriptive, because that's what they're going to be invested in. And I think just showing them who you have involved, so your key creatives, making sure you have that up to date, because you're going to get talent. The more people they see attached to your project, it's a little bit easier to get them on board as well.
That's right. I think that's exactly right. And I am gonna also, guys, if I can navigate myself around Zoom, I'm just dropping a link to one of the places online that you can find that Stranger Things deck. Like I said, it's called Montauk in their pitch. And that's in the chat, the regular chat on your Zoom, if anybody is looking for it and wants to go find it. Well, this was great. I know we're right at time, so I wanna give people back the rest of their evening. I think some folks are already having some drinks and some cocktails and some wine. So cheers to that, everybody. And we really appreciate everybody who came to the webinar tonight. This was great. Thank you, Matt O'Brien, for all of the great detail about AI. And thank you, Abby, for leading this great workshop. I think I'm seeing a lot of folks in the chat talk about how helpful this was and how amazing it was. So we really appreciate both of you giving us your time and your expertise.